Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about relics and how we should be interacting with them in terms of Grand Arena and the various things that they impact in that game mode. And so let's just kind of jump in here. Let me take a minute to explain what it is you're looking at. This is my counter sheet, and I maintain this after every single Grand Arena match that I have. I add different counters to the teams that I've fought and beat, and I link videos to them for people to be able to reference. And so you can see the entire layout of my teams and the teams that I've faced, and they're all sorted by leader of the opposing team, so you can see what team composition most closely matches what you're facing and see what I used to be able to beat it. And it's not super flashy, but it does have a lot of good links to videos and kind of just shows different counters that you may or may not know about yet. And so what I'm trying to show you here is at the core of Grand Arena, we're all just trying to seek all these different counters, and we're trying to beat our opponent's teams. We're trying to make sure that we're prepared for every eventuality, and relics have kind of mixed things up a tiny bit with that, but things really haven't changed very much. Now, all the relics have started giving stats to the various archetypes of characters, and I think that that's a great word to describe them, honestly, because at their core, each character does something well. Either they punch things well, they heal things well, they survive well, and all of these stats that people are gaining from relics are just kind of accentuating those different statistics. The really game-changing abilities and kits that really comprise a character aren't being changed right now. Like, we have Relic 7, and that will obviously change. The developers have already promised that we're going to get new abilities from relics. Maybe one day they'll do a cash grab or something where they want to add speed to some relic level, and we'll all have to rush to get to relic like 12 to be able to get speed on all of our characters that want speed. But right now, all the things that we're seeing, all the different stat increases, are really just like offensive numbers and defensive numbers. And those are things that we can kind of play around. Like, things haven't changed that much. The real approach to relics right now is to know which characters need relics at a high level and which characters we can kind of just do without putting a lot of relic levels on right now, because it impacts a lot of different other things in the game, as I'll show you. So first I want to show you this example of my Darth Revan team against my Shard Kraken's Darth Revan team. And you can see here my Darth Revan team has very few relic levels. The highest is 2, and I have one at 1, and it's not very impressive, to be honest. I'm okay with it if you feel impressed, but I would advise against it. Now, let's take a minute to look at my opponent's team here. They have the fastest mods by far on the entire Shard. I can barely beat this team, and I have to switch my mods between my Darth Revan and Badstila. It's very difficult to outspeed this opponent. He has some incredible mods, and it's all very impressive, of course. However, you'll see that their relic levels are all super high as well. Relic between like 4 and 7, and most of them are 7. And you would think that with that huge advantage in relic levels, it's at least 5 relic levels on most of the characters. You'd have to do something now. I've switched to Sith Trooper here instead of HK, just so that I can withstand the initial fear that my opponent has done. But now my Badstila is faster because I switched mods, and I'm able to get off some debuffs, and my team is able to fight back. I don't know if all of my play here is optimized. I tend to think like this is mostly the strategy that I follow, but one way or another, like, you can see that I'm able to fight my opponent and have a strong chance to be able to beat them. Even my Sith Trooper here, who's gear 12 plus like 2 or something, like he's doesn't have a lot of work on him. He doesn't have any 6E mods. He's still not. I'm still not doing poorly, even though I'm severely undergeared, or rather under relicked. I'm overspeeded. My opponent has all these advantages, and yet I can still beat him. Like you can see here, I'm not out of it by any stretch. And the truth is, I don't need higher relic levels to be able to beat my opponent. In this particular matchup, all I need is to be able to have one character that's faster, and I need to have superior play to their artificial intelligence, which isn't hopefully too hard for most of us. And otherwise, I can beat this opponent despite him having every single advantage. It's impossible for me to get my Revan faster than his, and I was still able to win. And I don't mean to just talk smack here against my opponent, because I frankly don't have much opportunity to do that against this particular guy anyways, but he has a lot of really good things on his team, and the fact is, relics don't change the fact that superior play and superior strategy are going to be able to beat them. Now, I needed one thing to be able to go well for me with mods, and that's not a relic thing. If I had gotten up to relic 7 and I hadn't previously been able to beat this opponent, I probably wouldn't be able to beat them even with relic 7 either. So relics just kind of accentuate the things that characters do well, and they don't necessarily add anything to like the kit or to their speed, anything that's hugely game changing. The core mechanics of the game, being able to outspeed someone and being able to out ability them, is probably going to be way more impactful than being able to punch things extra hard or be able to stay alive extra long. I mean, those things do matter eventually, like once we get up to like relic 17 or something, just being at relic 1, even if you have a speed advantage, you're probably not going to beat them. It's similar to if you have gear 5 with a team that's severely advantaged against a team that's, like gear 11. Gear 5 is not enough to be able to beat Gear 11. It doesn't matter what characters, what kits, what stats, anything. The stats are the big part. Stats do matter, but in the end, the kit matters more. And because this is a resource allocation game, we really want to make sure that we're allocating our resources responsibly and efficiently, and that's really what this video is about. So let's jump into this next video here. My opponent is running a really cool Padme squad with Jedi Knight Anakin. Everyone's got all the different relic levels. They're all got really fast arena mods, and I had an extra attack to be able to give this grand arena, or this arena, so I decided I'd just try my Traya team against my opponent here, and my Traya team isn't anything special, as you see. Like, I have Scion at gear 13, and then I have everyone else at gear 12 plus 5, Sith Troopers gear 12 plus 2. Everyone's reasonably well modded, but I don't have my arena mods on by any stretch. My opponent has really strong mods. You can see that they've already taken a couple turns, which means that they're pretty quick, and typically I've always used Traya to be able to counter Padme, and I wasn't sure if my gear 12 was going to be able to match up to relic 7 here, but having the Traya squad fighting Padme, you can see that I just have a huge positional advantage in terms of the matchup. It's not really that close of a match ever. Eventually we'll get to the point where all of the Sith are going to be able to, lose to relic, like I said, like relic 17, relic 20, whatever. But right now, even though I only have relic 1 on Scion and the rest of them are really low relics, the Traya team is more than holding its own against this Padme team. And, I've talked about this matchup before, and this really isn't something that I want to like spend a lot of time analyzing this particular matchup in. But the kits, the way they interact, the way that Treya penalizes, the all the different things that Padme does. Being able to act out of turn, being able to get all these buffs from someone outside of their own turn, it all adds up to Treya just really dominating this matchup in terms of kits. Like your kit is more important. The stats and everything are great. The Padme team, Jedi Knight Anakin is at like 9,000 offense or something obscene, and yet it just doesn't really matter in this match. Treya just dominates it because the kit is too strong. It just overwhelms Padme. Padme can't beat Treya. And that may change eventually if we get more characters, if like Mace Windu gets a rework, or whoever gets something crazy. Eth Koth goes nuts. I don't really care. That'll change things, but as things stand right now, the things that matter more are the rules, the interactions between the characters. And I know I'm beating this dead horse over and over again here, but my point is relics aren't necessarily something we have to focus on to the extreme. Like, we need to be focused on them and be paying attention to them, especially because eventually they're going to change things. But in the end, matchups haven't changed that much. Relics haven't changed very much about matchups. What we need to do is determine which matchups we're going to be trying to chase with relics. Which matchups do we need relics to be able to start beating these other teams consistently? If they have a high relic level, do we need a high relic level, or can we kind of put off the relics until later? Why would I put more relics on this Treya team? If Treya wants to be able to counter Padme and that's their sole function, there's no need to put more relics on Treya. Maybe I want to use Treya to be able to counter like General Grievous, in which case probably relic levels are warranted. But we need to be taking a really mindful approach. We don't just want to unilaterally say, oh, well, I'm not the same relic level, I guess I can't counter this team, because that's not true. Okay, so you may be asking, what should we be focusing on if we're not going to be focusing on relics? And I don't think we should necessarily not be focusing on relics. We should be looking at them, but right now my argument is that we should be looking at Gear 13. And you can see here that Wampa, this is the Wampa finisher piece, and you can see all this crazy stats that he's gained from it. He's gaining 8 speed, which is really important. The physical damage is crazy, armor pen, tenacity, all the things he likes, he's getting from this finisher piece. And I just, if we look here at the relic levels, the things that you gain from one tier of the relic levels is impressive. Like, you're gaining damage, you're gaining health, you're gaining all this stuff. You are gaining things from these relic levels, and they're a lot of times really tempting, of course. Being able to hit harder with Wampa is something, there's no question about that. Relics make characters better. I'm not at all arguing against that. What I am arguing about is the impact that these different stats give us for how much it costs to be able to get to that point. Now, you can see at the top of this page, the third line from the top, that it says top 80 GP. And what that means is the game, when you go into Grand Arena, the game takes your top 80 characters, at least if you're in the highest bracket and you're using 8 teams on defense, it takes your top 80 characters and it adds all of their GP together. And when it gets that number, then it pairs you with someone who has as close to as possible that same GP level for their top 80. And so you start getting paired with people who have distributed their points in different ways, and whoever is the most efficient about distributing those points amongst their top 80 characters is going to be in a better position, of course. You want to go for efficiency within those 80 characters. Now, this next clip here is showing Shock T, and I had just put on her laptop piece for 210 GP. 210 GP is a relatively small amount. You're getting, some decent stats. You're getting plus speed. You're getting plus all this different stuff. The laptop is fine. The finisher is obviously more impactful, but 210 GP is not bad at all. Okay, now let's look at this next clip, and that it's of relic level 3 going up to relic level 4 for a snowtrooper. And I believe that most of the relic levels are pretty close to, if not identical, in GP. And you can see at the top, it's adding 987 GP. That's almost basically 1,000 GP. And maybe that's worth it to you. It was clearly worth it to me. I did that just earlier today. For no apparent reason, but actually it's pretty cool. But you guys can watch my other videos and find out more about that. The real reason I wanted to show you this, though, is it's 1,000 GP if you put a finisher on 4 different characters and have those huge stat boosts, the plus 8 speed, all the different things, all the offense. If you put 4 finishers on different characters, it's going to be way more impactful than just one relic level. Now, I'm not trying to say that relics are bad. That's not at all what I'm trying to get at. You can see here the tier 7 stats for this Wampa is, they're pretty big. Like the overall, in the column on the far right, you can see all the different things that have been added up to tier 7. Like, it's a pretty substantial amount. You get 20k health, you get 2,700 extra damage every time you hit, your armor is increased. Like, all these different things are great for Wampa. You want those things for Wampa. But if you look at the next slide here, you look at how much my sloppily drawn or circled numbers are going to cost you in GP to be able to get to that to those stat increases. I mean, that's like 8,000 GP, 8,000 to be able to get up to tier 7 of relics. And maybe that's worth it to you. Maybe you want to put it on a transcendent character. But take, for example, like, why would you put relics right now on Hermit Yoda? Like, Hermit Yoda doesn't do anything, really. Like, he just survives and is annoying, and he trains people, he does all these things, he's a good character. But throwing relics on him are just going to make sure that you're matched against someone who has put their points into something more efficient, because it's not efficient. Like, getting him more hit points and stuff, I mean, sure, that's nice. I won't deny, like, he wants more stats, but you don't necessarily need that right now. What you really need is efficiently upping your stats and upping your speeds, upping everything that you can. And right now, Gear 13 is really just the thing you want to be focusing on. And I've put my money behind my words. I recently spent $100 on a pack when the relics were released, and instead of spending the $100 on the relics themselves, I spent the $100 on more Gear 13 characters. And so, whether or not that was wise, I don't know, but I do firmly believe that Gear 13 is going to be the more efficient route right now. Now, eventually that's going to change once we start getting new abilities. They've hinted that Darth Vader might get something fancy, some kind of force choke thing or whatever. Then sure, like, I'll admit that we need to start working on relics and really prioritizing them. But right now, if we're looking at the impact that relics have on GP, this is enormous. Like, if you put Relic 7 on a character that doesn't need it, you're basically going to be matched up with someone with like 3 extra Zetas, 3 more Zetas than you. Or, someone who has, like 15 more Gear 13 characters, or something like that. And so we really need to be targeting specific characters before we before we start putting relics just on everyone willy-nilly. Now, before you make fun of my use of the word willy-nilly too much, I do want to show you this last video clip here. I'm facing a General Grievous squad that has Relic 7 on General Grievous, which means he's at like 150, 160,000 health, and all of that health is going to really be helping him be able to hit me harder. And I take my pretty standard Bastila lead Jedi here, and my opponent has kind of a weird team, so maybe this isn't like the perfect example, but I did make sure that I have, like one relic level on a few of my characters here to add a little resilience and stuff, and I think that that's really kind of the approach you need. Like, just having gear 12 facing General Grievous on Relic 7 is probably going to end up costing you quite a bit, and so what you really want to do is, just know what teams are going to need what. Like, you want to make sure that the characters that you're facing are going to be beatable by the team that you have. And so adding adding gear 13 and a couple relic levels to my Revan squad is probably all that I need right now. Now, maybe I will need more relic levels to be able to face a higher level General Grievous team that have way more relics. I don't really know. As it stands, I think that I need some anyways, because he already was killing my characters pretty quick despite all their extra protection and everything. But overall, like, this match is basically just done, and I'm gonna cut it short here just because it does go. Alright, so before I sign off here, I wanted to suggest 5 different characters that might be good candidates to put Relic 7 on, because I realize that a lot of people have finished all their Cantina farms. There's a lot of different reasons why you should be farming relics right now, and really right now a lot of the relics that you want to be farming are going to be because of the damage that a character can do. Characters who are already doing a lot of damage are going to just continue to do well under relics. They're going to be game changers. If you can like one-shot different characters, that's going to be a big thing. So my first suggestion would be Night Sister Spirit. She starts doing some really, really disgusting damage toward the end of her relic tier. Even at relic 4, she's starting to one-shot characters. She's a really fun character to be able to use on offense. On defense, people aren't going to want to face that because relic 4, I mean, she's going to be one-shotting a lot of Jedi, doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and so Night Sister Spirit is one really good candidate. Another candidate is Chewie, and I only have him at 3 right now. I would love to get him up to 7. Not only does he impact his ship, which is one of the best in the game. It's no longer meta because we have the Negotiator, and I don't really know. Negotiator isn't quite like the meta yet, but suffice it to say, he has one of the best ships. But then also he's assisting a ton of different shots. Like, Han Solo gets a ton of turns, and therefore Chewbacca is shooting a lot, and he can get upwards of 10,000 total offense, which is nuts. He does a huge amount of damage, and because of all of his assists, it goes with another really high damage dealer with Han, and usually with Commander Luke as well. So he's another good suggestion. Next, we have the somewhat obvious Jedi Knight Anakin. He's got a really great ship, and you have to have that ship if you're going to be running Negotiator, but even if you're not, his ship is pretty good. And then he's also able to, now that he's got all these, he's got his kit change, and his relic gives him so much extra damage that he's one-shotting Darth Revan teams. It's pretty cool to be able to see that. Definitely a character to be looking at to upgrade. He is right now my only Relic 7 character. The next character that I would suggest to go to Relic 7 or at least to contemplate doing it, is the Brood Alpha. And the only reason I really targeted the Brood Alpha is because you get a twofer. With the Geonosians, he summons the Brute, and the Brute's, all of his stats are based off of the Brood Alpha's stats. And that's pretty big for the squad. You're getting 2 characters for the price of 1. And that's not only for the price of 1 in terms of materials, but you're also getting 2 for the price of 1 with your GP. And that's pretty efficient. I don't know how much we care about Relic level 7 Geonosians. I think that's definitely a candidate, however. And then finally, Enfys Nest is another great candidate, not only because she starts doing some pretty gross damage toward the end of her Relic levels, but she also starts getting an enormous health pool. She gets, I think I've seen people with like health 80k Nest, and that is really hard to deal with. It's really frustrating. You might even be able to get it higher if you really focus that, but that's with a high level of tenacity as well. And so she's already obnoxious to deal with at Relic 7. She's really obnoxious, and if you're not careful, you're just going to lose to her team. You would have to have something that is really strong to be able to take her out, and so she's another suggestion. Now, I will say that there are a lot of characters that you want high relic levels on. These 5 that I've listed are good, but they're not the only characters that we want to move up in relic level. These are just suggestions, things to get the juices flowing, things for you to think about. Typically, the things that I'm focusing on are offensive characters, the ones that can impact different matchups and be able to defend at a high level, potentially, be able to end the fight before your opponent really gets spinning. If Nice Sister Spirit can one-shot Ahsoka, for instance, that's going to be huge. And so that's absolutely something that I'm looking into. There are a lot of other characters that you may consider going up to Relic 7. I don't think that Sith Empire is really the answer right now, at least. Maybe soon they'll get some kind of transcendent ability that'll change the whole meta. I don't really know, but as of right now, that's basically it. Like, you want high offensive characters or characters that are going to be impactful. Like, should Padme get Relic 7? I don't really know. I kind of think that that's a little bit of a waste. Maybe you should be putting your GP into something else and waiting to see, maybe just because you can put relic levels on characters doesn't mean you have to. You can save those materials, and once the relics actually come into play where we need to have a bunch of higher level relics, like, you'll be set. You'll have all these, all the different pieces and parts ready for that. So just stuff to keep in mind, guys. I know this video's kind of gotten long. I hope that it helped, though. I hope that this is something that you're interested in. So thank you so much for listening and watching. And remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.